This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Wasabi Technologies is purpose-built to free businesses from skyrocketing storage costs and unpredictable egress fees from those old and top-heavy legacy providers. You know, the big guys. Wasabi is the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams around the world. From Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals, Wasabi is driving innovation in data storage. All for up to 80% less than those other guys. Try them out for free at wasabi.com.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, and he's on the Dan Barrero right now.
And he's brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. It doesn't really trip off the tongue, but we do appreciate their fine support. And I know Gaardsy, Jonny Athletic does as well. He joins via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. What did something happen to you on X yesterday that you now regret? We all have those moments, but somebody said you. Let me see if I can find the exact. Although this is a different tweet storm. I don't know. Please ask Johnny what pushed him over the edge and made him take victory laps on X yesterday over which round the Wolves draft pick from the Pistons turned out to be in.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, that one. There's been several this last week or so. So I'm glad you're more specific. But so that one in particular, when we first reported that Karl Anthony Towns was being traded to New York, broke that story on that Friday night. And kind of you're piecing together all of the details. Everyone's wondering what the heck happened, what went into the decision. And one of the things that I reported was that the Wolves were getting the Detroit Pistons first round pick in 2025 as part of the deal. And I said that was a significant asset for the Timberwolves in this trade package, in addition to Randall and DiVincenzo. Well, then you get a lot of real NBA Twitter GMs out there who say, well, actually, Johnny, that pick is protected and that will never be a first-round pick this next year because it's top 13 protected. Detroit's going to be terrible. So you're an idiot for saying that it's a significant asset. And my whole thing was that Detroit is in the Eastern Conference. Did I think they would be as good as they would be this year? No, but certainly playing in that conference with a coaching change, with talent on the roster, I felt like it was a significant asset. And lo and behold, here we are now going into next season, into the draft in 2025. They will have the Detroit Pistons first round pick. And it turns out that I might have known what I was talking about just there. So took a little minute to just let people know that, hey, I kind of figured things out a little bit with this.
So what was the other one? There was one late at night because you said you did one of those. I'm deleting what I did. I lost my mind. What was that one about?
That one was there was a clip circulating after. So it was the night that Nikola Jokic had the 60-point triple-double against the Wolves, and the night that Steph went for 52 against Memphis. And so so the next morning, it was, a long night, short sleep, getting up for going to the plane. I get up and I check Twitter, and I see a clip from First Take circulating where Stephen A. Smith is saying he talked to a Hall of Fame basketball player who said Steph never would have made it in his day because we would have just beat him up. And I just snapped because I was tired of how is that the conversation the next day off of a remarkable game, a remarkable performance, and it's all about how this guy wouldn't have hacked it back then or whatever. And so I snapped and I fired something out there, and then I just said, you know what, it's not worth getting into, and so I deleted it. But it galls me to no end when that is the conversation coming off of a game like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. I'm surprised. Well, then why'd you delete it?
I just didn't want to get into the mudslinging media on media crime kind of stuff. And I just decided against. And I also, at that time, I was literally on 2.5 hours sleep. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm of sound mind and body to be making this decision right now. And so I could have been right and I could have been fine, but I'm just I'm just going to back off of it and just live to fight another day. All
right. Help me understand. I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse here because Tolosa has not yet been approved officially, and that still has to happen by the Board of Governors. So maybe we start there before we get into the issue of how different the front office is going to look and where the various pieces might fit. But Texter Guy, this is Dave from Bloomington. Is it possible Glenn Taylor has one more card up his sleeve? Can his NBA owner buddies not approve the sale or add some conditions which could reopen the negotiations? Is that too conspiratorial or not?
Well, it's a great question to ask, Dan, because I can tell you, let's go back, say, 5, 6, 8 months even in this saga and in this fight. And there were real sort of, not even whispers, but fairly loud conversation in the back alleys of the league about that possibility where maybe Glenn Taylor loses the arbitration and doesn't get by on the legal end of things, but that his, fellow owners rally to his aid and say, we have some concerns about Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez. We love Glenn Taylor. He's been a good partner for 30 years. So we're going to actually vote down and not approve Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez, and we're going to go forward with Glenn Taylor as the majority owner. I will tell you that in the last probably 3 to 4 months, all of that talk has really subsided. You're talking to people around the league, talking to other, ownership groups and things like that, and trying to take the temperature of the water. I think that Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez have taken all of this time that as this arbitration was playing out and really fortified their position. They added Michael Bloomberg. They have made the right conversations and had the right lobbying efforts and doing the political things behind the scenes to really ingratiate them with the rest of the league. And so no one really expects at this point that the owners will not approve Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez. That was a real talking point, though, maybe 9 months ago, maybe even a year ago. But I think the two partners, the younger guys, have done enough over the last 6 months for this to be approved, and everyone expects that to happen, and they will get the team eventually.
So that's always been the kicker to this story, is it not? You and I have talked about this several times, that the break, to an extent, for the new guys is the amount of time gave them the opportunity, several opportunities, to shore up whatever legitimate questions there might be about the funding by adding people like Mike Bloomberg, who I think has pretty deep pockets. That pretty much nullified whatever chance that Taylor might have had to have a point.
Yeah, it's really the definition of irony, Dan, when you look at it, because remember when Glenn Taylor pulled the plug last March, it was after the Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez had to change their financing at the last minute, and were kind of going through and scrambling a little bit to shift gears and just to get the process to continue moving forward. And so when he pulled the plug, Glenn Taylor did have real questions about their financing, about their ability to pay for this, not just to pay for it, but also to operate it going forward. And I can't say, but let's just say that he did not pull the plug and he said, okay, guys, I'm going to let you go to league approval for this now. You say you have everything in your ducks in a row. Let's go ahead. There might have been a better chance of that scenario happening where the league looked at it and said, yeah, I don't know about this, and let's not exactly approve it. And in the meantime, over this last year, they put $950 million in an escrow account. They are ready to buy out Glenn Taylor entirely rather than him staying around at 20%. They just really seem to be, Mark Lowry's personal wealth has really kind of gone up on paper if you look at Forbes estimates on his net worth. And so they just seem to be on much firmer ground and much more ready for this. And yeah, it's, they put that all this time under arbitration to really good use. And that may be something that Glenn Taylor ends up regretting in the long haul.
How sweeping from the front office standpoint, business side especially, do you believe this is going to be if they do indeed get approved as you expect?
Yeah, I don't. So first of all, just, I think most fans are more concerned about basketball.
Yes.
And, Mark and Alex were huge in bringing in Tim Connolly. They still have to negotiate some sort of new contract for him. So that has to happen. I anticipate that, they will do that and make every effort to do that to keep Tim Connolly around. They were part of the conversations in extending Chris Finch's contract last playoffs. And so they like Chris Finch. So I don't anticipate major moves from a leadership on the basketball side, but on the business side, yes. I think there were more people on the business side who had direct ties to Glenn Taylor. And as this fight played out, there was a real line in the sand with some high level, people on the business side of the operation, some going with Glenn, others trying to stay in the middle of it. And I think the people who are identified as Glenn people are probably going to be moving on. And so, when you look at those changes, I think that Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez are going to make changes to the business side. They're going to try to produce more revenue in addition to doing new arena and all those other things. And that's going to be where there's more significant personnel changes are versus the basketball that should stay pretty much the same, provided Tim Connolly extends as people expect him to do.
All right, everybody assumes that with Taylor out of the way, that KG will come back and be willing to come back and will have the retirement of the jersey, etc. The larger question is whether there's another role, and there are a lot of people who keep speculating that there is going to be a role, but I, for the life of me, can't quite figure it out. I mean, it's easy to romanticize. Yeah, who wouldn't want to have KG back as an asset? But are you saying what? He's not going to run the team, I don't think. It's going to be Conley's team to run in a basketball sense. So what is, in your view, likely, possible, probable when it comes to a Garnett role here beyond bringing him back, welcoming him back into the family, raising a banner, doing the jersey, doing a statue, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, that's going to be the real question mark, Dan, because I do know that Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry want to have a jersey ceremony for KG. They want to bring him back into the fold and have him around and not have this, this war between the franchise and the best player that's ever played here. That is important to them. The question that I don't have an answer to is what exactly does KG want in this whole thing? Because I do not think that the option is there for him to be any kind of GM, assistant GM, pseudo GM type of a person. I think this is Tim Connolly's operation, and that's the way that it should be. But I also don't see a scenario where it's sort of like an ambassador role where KG shows up and he kisses babies and he shakes hands and he does that. That's just not his type of thing in general. So I don't know exactly how they're going to work out the long-term fit for him and what that is. And is there a tiny, piece of equity in the team, or, that kind of thing. That I think is still being talked about and discussed. And so we'll have to see where all of that shakes out. But there definitely are very much efforts on the part of Mark Lori and Ox Rodriguez to build a bridge back and at very minimum to get 21 up in the rafters sooner than later.
Because I don't, you know what I think of the KG legacy. I know what you think of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think in any way, and I know there's a lot of bad blood about what he was promised, and then we had the flip passing, and that changed everything. But I don't think this organization owes him anything regarding power, in terms of running the team. Now, maybe I'd feel differently, and I'd say roll the dice with him if they were a mess in terms of management, right? But they're not.
Right.
So the idea that, you got to give him whatever KG wants, he's got to get, that does not, I don't think that computes with me, especially if he would ask for a Joe Smith, maybe appreciation day as well. And that would be my biggest concern if you bring KG back in a management personnel role.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I look, you could see a world where, maybe the organization is a mess. They're a little wayward, right. And they look to Kevin Garnett and they say, here is this icon of our franchise, an incredibly intelligent basketball player who saw the game at a different level, who knows the game, all those things. Let's bring him in and empower him. Let's help. Maybe he puts the staff around himself and they build out a front office to do it that way. I mean, we've seen plenty of other former players get those opportunities elsewhere, and it goes. But given where they are right now, which I would argue they have the most stable front office and coaching staff together that they've ever had in the history of their franchise, that you can really rely on this group to lead them responsibly and smartly kind of going forward for the long haul. And I don't think that they want to upset that apple cart. I think they want stability and they want continuity. And that's what the best organizations have. And so there really is no reason for them to do that right now with Garnett in terms of making him a president of basketball operations, anything like that. So, but is that what Garnett wants? I don't know.
Other question.
I really don't know exactly what he's looking for in this deal, but I imagine that it's not going to be just straightforward. Hey, Glenn Taylor's out. KG, come on back. We'll have a ceremony for you. I think there will probably be other things that have to be discussed there.
Well, a couple people have texted during our conversation saying they've read something about KG talking about is on a podcast where he was just really referring to interest in community outreach kind of programs, and he's not at all interested in a day-to-day basketball type job. I've not seen those stories or those reports. Or are you aware or familiar with any of that what KG has articulated to this point?
Yeah, I'm not that specifically, Dan, but I do know that he has always said he doesn't want to coach. He does not see himself as head coach material, as the guy that wants to be in the locker room every single day and on the road and doing those things. I do think that he has always seen himself more as an executive, or an owner, certainly. But where he is right now in that, I really don't know. He's been out of the league for a fairly long time now. He's doing the podcast. He's got a bunch of other ventures going. So I'm not sure if that has altered his goals and his desires and what he wants to do in the league or not. I just haven't heard him speak on that, especially specifically to Minnesota. Hopefully now that as this keeps going, we'll get a little more clarity on that front.
Jonny Athletic is with us here for the first half of the 5 o'clock hour. The Wolves are in Milwaukee. In fact, we chatted with Mike Conley as he rode the bus to presumably either practice or the team hotel in Milwaukee. You know this stuff left and right, front and back, regarding the way we've got 5 teams bunched up in the Western Conference. Wolves allegedly could finish as high as 3, could finish as low as number 8. Is there historic precedent for this? Because as we talked about with Conley, this time of year, a lot of stuff, usually there may be 2 or 3 teams vying for position, But a lot of teams are resting people and saying, it's boring. There's not much interesting to deal with. This almost has a playoff feel to it that I think it almost feels like, even though these aren't playoff games, that perhaps the playoffs have started earlier. Have we seen anything like this much interest in and emphasis on the last 4, 5, 6 games of a regular season?
Yeah, I can't remember another scenario like this, Dan. I mean, certainly we have seen, a head-to-head with a couple of teams jockeying. We remember, in Tibbs' year, the year they made the playoffs, going to Game 82 with Denver and having to win on the last day of the season to get into the playoffs. We've seen that, but to where you're looking at 3-way ties, 4-way ties, 5-way ties even as possibilities, and how you figure out the tiebreakers and just also like how well the Warriors, Wolves, Clippers are all playing right now. Like everyone is winning almost all of the time. It really is crazy. I don't think I can remember, in my 21 years covering the team, anything like this. I mean, this illustrates how crazy it is. The Wolves did not play yesterday. They had a couple of the teams around them lose, and yet they still fell in the standings because the losses triggered a 4-way tie where their head-to-head records are a little bit worse than it was previously. And so that's how volatile it is. That's how tentative it is. And that's how white knuckle it's going to be all the way down the stretch. The cool thing is that many of these teams play each other down the stretch, including the Wolves playing Memphis on Thursday. And so we will get to see this really hashed out on the court, I believe. There's not going to be any gifts given through this whole thing. But in terms of drama and in terms of the amount of teams that are all jockeying for position, I've just never seen anything like it. It's crazy. Do the Conley comments, I think this was after the Philly game, that we also talked about with him today when he joined us on the team bus, should they worry Wolves fans coming at this late date, or do you buy what Conley tried to sell me, which was, look, we're playing our best basketball of the year, and we're volatile, there's no question, but a lot of teams are, even good teams who are hot, go through issues that they have to deal with, trials and tribulations. How do you respond, or what did you make of what Conley had to say in terms of what impact it has on what the Wolves could really do with this opportunity? Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right approach. No shock that Mike Conley has a great perspective on what is important here and how to operate. I do think that with everyone so bunched up together, I don't think that you can afford to sort of shop for the right seed, the right matchup, all of those things. I think that their priority needs to be getting out of the play-in tournament, even if that means, let's say you're at 7 and you really like your matchup against the Rockets at number 2, which they should. I would still rather be at 6 because you don't know what's going to happen in the play-in. You could drop down to 8 and have to face OKC. Yep. You could get the Lakers, who I think are a worse matchup for the Wolves, and I think there are real concerns about what they would do with Luka and LeBron and all of that. But ultimately, I think that they just have to go into it saying, we do feel like this is coming together over the last month and a half. We do feel like we are finding ourselves, and we've got to build as much confidence and momentum going forward. Matchup be damned, and just get in there and get to playing, because you get in that top 6, you get a week off before the playoffs start, and you get to rest up, you get to scout, you get to figure things out. I think that's just the best case scenario for them. And so they just need to go into these last 4 games and say, we got to win them all. And whether we finish 3rd or 5th or 6th, that's the priority. Wherever, let's just get there and get playing the best basketball we can at this point in the season. I think that's a very fair point. I mean, this may be a year where being in the play-in is not a killer, but it's still not something you want to invite, because there are so many there's so many volatile possibilities when you get into the 1 game and even the 2 game scenario if you lose the first one with a second chance at the second.
How would you feel about a first-round matchup with Golden State?
Oh, man. Steph and buckets in Target Center. Like, would Jimmy play in these games in Target Center? That's my question. But no, like, I would love it. I mean, it would be great theater. Draymond against Rudy.
What kind of a matchup is it for the? Is it a good matchup for the Wolves? Scary matchup for the Wolves? What do you think?
You know, the Warriors are playing great. Certainly, they have caught something with Jimmy Butler, and they're really, really good. They actually beat the Wolves 3 times without him, which I think is actually those losses, Dan, are the biggest regrets they should have this season, even more so than Washington or San Antonio or others, because Utah, because you know, that Warriors team was so beatable, and you could have had a double win, essentially, by getting those. And instead, you know, they were there. So from a matchup perspective, they're playing great. I would be worried about Steph in a playoff series, for sure. But I do kind of like the matchup just because they're really small.
Yes.
I think that the Wolves' size would be to their advantage. I also do not think that the Warriors have anyone who can cover Ant one-on-one. And so I would worry about the Warriors defensively that way. And so I would go into that series confident in the Wolves' ability to win. Would I guarantee it? No. I would probably pick them to win in 7 games, though.
We appreciate the time, as always. Try to stay off X late at night.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Johnny. That is John Krasinski, RBC Wealth Management, fine sponsor of the Jonny Athletic segment each and every week, generally on Monday, sometimes on Tuesdays, depending on the time of the year at which we are speaking. We've got a lot of good texts to sort of play off of the rest of this program. Maybe hit a little A section as well. I've not had a chance to be on the air in a while. I'm curious to know how people are feeling about their 401ks. I don't think historically 401k is like, oh, that's for the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. But I actually think the statistics indicate that it's a little more complicated than that in recent years, certainly recent 5 to 10 years. But we've got some other things to discuss, some good text to get to, and back to the Wiliiams Arena discussion. So a full hour yet to go, and plenty of fodder.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
The rest of the show. Clayton from Rochester checks in. Dan, it sounds as if the Gophers hanging their Final Four banner has inspired other Minnesota sports teams. The Twins will be hanging their Yu Darvish free agency runner-up banner as well. That's a Lavelle E. Neal III special, right? He was the guy who propagated that story.
Didn't do the extra year.
And on and on and on. But I like that. Very good callback to days gone by. A lot of theories have coming in regarding the Final Four men's basketball Golden Gopher championship banner.
Where it is.
Among the theories that have been advanced, what if the banner was buried with the late, great Sid Hartman? Because sometimes, you put possessions in there, you put special mementos.
Yeah.
What if we find out that's where the banner is? You can't, you cannot mess with that.
No, we wouldn't mess with that.
No,
Chad would know. He could tell us.
Oh, he would know, wouldn't he?
I would hope. Yeah, he would know. Sid was the one that waved Clem onto the floor the last time he was in town, remember?
That's right.
We did honor one of the early Clem teams.
Yes, we did.
With Willie Burton. I think it was the Elite Eight team.
That's right.
And so he was there. They allowed him to be in the building. They weren't going to allow him to be on the floor until Sid got involved and got Clem on the floor with that team. I think it was the 88 or 89.
You're right. He was the
Elite Eight team. 90 Elite Eight
instigator.
Team.
I mean, how do you say no to Sid?
You can't.
Right? You can't say no to Sid.
They never did. That was one of the funny things when I sat down. I think you were gone at this point. I did a podcast with Nico Medved, who is famously a manager on those teams.
I do.
His senior year was the year before the Final Four team, 96. But he talked about rooming with Chad Colander and some other guys from Owatonna.
That's a great
But he
name
said, think about
that.
this for now, how impossible it is to do anything now. He said Sid would just call their apartment constantly, just looking for scoops, looking for news, because you could do that back then.
Back in the day.
It was just part of the deal.
That's what you did.
You could, and you wouldn't get yelled at by the coach. You wouldn't get yelled at by the SID. You just called the players' apartments.
You two, as in Jonny Athletic and me, are the only two people on the planet that think KG should or could run an NBA team. No, it's actually to the contrary. I think, at least what I was saying was, there should be, I feel like there's actually other people who are making the assumptions that, well, that's the next step after you raise a banner for him or bring him back and retire his number, that there's this idea, well, he's got it's almost like he's owed something because of what he expected his role was going to be with Flip, right? Because that was part of the deal with Flip.
Yep.
That's where a lot of the falling out with Glenn began. Correct?
I think most of it.
I don't know if it began, but it exacerbated the issue. So, no, it's the opposite. I think what I've said, I kind of led, I think, my view with the question, saying that, well, as long as Tim Connolly is running the show, there's no one else to run the show, right? Maybe you consider KG in an emergency situation where it's cats and dogs living together and it's a mess. And even that is dangerous because he's got no history of doing it. That doesn't mean he can't,
right?
Or doesn't have good
Shouldn't
instincts.
Disqualify him.
But it's not that simple. So no, it's the exact opposite. Neither one of us. We're saying it's not automatic. Should not be considered automatic that he be considered for this job in a stable organization right now. Yet a part of me would say, well, if Garnett wants to come back, he's not going to want to just twiddle his thumbs. My guess is he may be past the point where he wants to mess with the day-to-day headaches of that kind of job anyway. He's got a lot of stuff, media stuff going now. I think he's doing fine.
Yeah.
I don't sense he feels deprived. I do think he feels deprived in terms of his emotional connection with this franchise.
Agree.
And wants to fix that now that his arch enemy is out of the way, right?
Yes.
The question was, is there another step to that? And I don't think there should be any obligation on the part of this team under these conditions, because you can't have, okay, we'll have Conley running it and we'll have KG under him. Unless KG is ready to go long route, like, okay, I want to learn that part of it because somewhere down the road, that's something I'd like to do. I guess, maybe. But barring that, no, you don't mess with the model at this point with Tim Connolly running the show.
No, I don't think there should be any speculation or thought about that.
No.
I wonder if that's what KG eventually wants to do. I would lean no.
I would too. Actually, I would too.
And that's not a criticism of him. It's just
not in the least.
He's got such a good thing going on with everything he's doing right now with his media stuff. And
his media stuff has gone well.
And just being a former Hall of Fame player or a Hall of Fame player and a former legend for a couple of different teams.
Blow out,
You get to do what you need to do.
Coyle gave the banner to PJ. Why would PJ have it? That doesn't even make any sense.
Well, if PJ wants it, PJ's going to get it.
Well, that's true.
That's the way it should be.
I guess I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you might be right. Let me get to a couple of other texts that I was starring. What's the update on Kaprizov? That needs to be discussed. That's from Fallness. I would think Fallness would know. Isn't he supposed to tell us?
Well, yeah. What were you doing yesterday?
From Paul. So what you said earlier was there's a belief that he could play as early as Wednesday night.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. He was cleared, I think, to do some skating over the weekend. I'm going back to whatever Russo told me on Friday. They'll have a practice tomorrow, and if everything's good there. And the nice thing about NHL practices is everybody gets to go. Talking about the media. So they'll sit there and they'll watch the practice and they'll see whose line he's on, what he's doing.
You can't describe the exact location of an injury, but you can go to practice.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so we'll at least get that. And so I would think at practice tomorrow, we'll see some of that. And then Wednesday, San Jose, I think, is who we play.
So we got 4 games left, right?
Correct.
Starting with Wednesday night.
Yes.
Because we're not playing tomorrow night, are we? I don't think. So we got 4 games left. Both the Wolves and the Wild have 4 games left.
Yes, Wolves are tomorrow night against the Bucks right here on the Fan.
Yeah.
Wild against a dreadful San Jose team, I believe.
By the way, apparently Giannis is expected to play against the Wolves. He'd sat the last game. And who's the veteran front court player? The name will come to me in a minute. No. He's been there forever. Very popular with the fans. He's been out. I think he's missed like 25 games. He's back for that game. And obviously, Lillard is still out. So, but this is, again, one of those games where they could easily lose it, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no question. Because it's still Giannis. He doesn't have to defer to, and Portis. Bobby Portis is the other player I'm thinking of.
Oh.
He's supposed to be back for this game because he's been out an extended period. And, he's a valuable player for them.
Yes, he is.
He ain't Lillard as a scorer, but that's a game that you don't want to mess with. I think that will be, my guess, is a competitive ball game. Now, some people think the Bucks are just done, and maybe they are. I don't know. We've got 4 toes. After Milwaukee, we're at Memphis. That's the showdown game, potentially.
Yep.
And then
Brooklyn here.
Guns blazing in Memphis, apparently. Your guy. It's bizarre. The whole thing is so bizarre.
It's amazing to me that, because I defended him on the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It was he and another player the same night got in trouble for the same thing. And I said, all right, is it the worst thing in the world? No. Does he need to be suspended for another 25? No. Would I recommend it? No. Then he gets talked to, and then he does it again. So then I go, well,
what are you doing? That's why it's hard to have
here?
sympathy for him, because
it is.
You could argue that what he did, a lot of players do, and some players get, and there's some truth to it. But at some point, it's like, how do you root for a guy who decides, okay, in effect, it's almost like he's saying, screw it.
Suspend me again.
I'll be the villain if that's what you want me. I'll continue to be the villain. Again, pretending that all this has been brought down upon him and he's had nothing to do with it. That's when it becomes hard to root for him.
I know. And I love John Morant's game.
Yeah.
He came on. They beat the Wolves in the playoffs when they were a 2 seed.
Correct.
What's Ant's doing a celebration that looks like there's some kind of guns involved?
I don't even know what is that what that?
I don't know. Someone needs to tell me what that is, because my kids ask me what it is, and I say, I don't really know. He's doing the dance thing.
Yeah.
Last year he was doing the old wrestling celebration when they beat Phoenix. I can't really explain to the kids what that one is.
No, you can't.
And I'm fine with that. It's okay, but I'd like to at least know what he's trying to do.
And then we finish with 2 home games. Brooklyn, I think, Friday night, and then matinee Sunday game against the always dangerous,
the
plucky Utah
Ready
Jazz.
To play spoiler?
You know what, though?
Walker Kessler?
I'm guessing Danny Ainge might play in that game. They might be down so many players that Ainge will have to play. A pause here. We've got an A-section development to get to. And
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, so much more. We will revisit the Wiliiams Arena topic, which we've sort of touched on a couple times today, but I got to get back to my inspiration on it because I know Gaardsy was under siege doing his Final Four shows from San Antonio Davie, from people voluntarily defending the barn, whether or not they knew that they were hurting Gaardsy's your feelings as they were doing it. I want to get into that and a text that has me confused in that regard as well. Have you seen the Mark Cuban? I won't call it a meltdown because I don't think it's more dispassionate than that. His treatise on Doge.
No,
Mark
I
Cuban,
haven't.
the former owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
I've not seen it.
Let me quote from it because I thought it was pretty well done. That's not. Careful, righties. That's not me taking a position on Mark Cuban. It's saying what he argued in this case I thought was pretty interesting. And I don't know how long ago he wrote this. I'll keep saying it for the people in the back. Doge had the right idea. I repeat, he says Doge had the right idea.
The Department of Government Efficiency.
Reduce spending enough to slow down the economy. A slower economy means interest rates come down. And if things slow enough, the Fed reduces rates to juice the economy, and debt repayment gets far cheaper, and the debt comes down with any growth. Where Doge screwed up is that they tried to do it all at once under the excuse that the Dems would kill it. Cutting spending and firing hundreds of thousands all at once has a disproportionate impact on small cities and states. That makes it far harder, he writes, for interest rates to enable growth. If they plan it out, give the country a chance to plan and get ready for the cuts, then it truly could have worked and worked well enough that they could have cut more than they did. And with the lower rates, the deficit could have been reduced with lower debt, interest costs, etc. Add to this all these tariffs simultaneously, and someone is going to get fired, probably Lutnick, unless Trump shows up in the week or two after the tariff hits and gives us a removal of the tariffs or even an across-the-board 10% tariffs. That at least is less inflationary. Less inflationary means at least a little better chance that the Fed can lower rates as long as those tariffs are in place. And active, it's going to be hard for inflation to come down and for employment to stay up. That's the Fed mandate. Employment and inflation. Read firearm. Ready, firearm is no way to govern. If there's a plan, show it to us. And I don't think he podcasts the show much, and he might know a little bit more about the business world than either one of us, but it's kind of what I have talked about intermittently regarding the whole Doge thing. It was, in theory, made some sense, and there are, frankly, too many Democrats that do not want to acknowledge. By the way, there's a couple of Democrats I'm going to save a story from them for either later this week or sometime in the next week or two that are examples of Dems who are willing to acknowledge where Democrats have gone wrong regarding this particular issue and never want to acknowledging anything about waste. Might even be one who's the governor of the great state of Minnesota, but more on that later. The reality, though, is that if you're going to do it, don't do it with a meat cleaver. And in doing so, along the way, harm a lot of legitimate programs that in the end are going to bite the Republicans, I think, in the butt. And maybe even the president of the United, maybe for him it doesn't matter because I don't think he pays attention to the fine print or the details. But that's the part that never made any sense. There's no deliberation here that indicates the homework has been done on exactly, no, this is not fat. This is something we might be able to streamline, but this isn't fat. We're throwing out the baby with the bathwater too many times, and then we're going to have to do the Shawanga backpedal, etc. And to me, that Cuban is talking about on a more business level in terms of the interest rates and inflation, but I think it all works together. And in some cases, it becomes, it should be a little unbelievable to, okay, here's a new department we're looking at, and then the next day, what do we hear? They just saw, you know what? Here's the chart. We just saved another $3 trillion.
We emailed everybody.
How can you know that in 15 minutes?
You can't.
You can't.
And that's why they had to backtrack so many times.
It has to be a little bit more deliberate than that, no matter what your intentions are. And I think Cuban raises some very good points on that particular issue.
Isn't governmental excess and bloatedness, really government, any business, isn't that something that's pretty universally understood as a good thing to examine and look at? Like, I think all reasonable people go,
yes, it should be.
Where can we find ways to cut or make things run more efficiently, to use the actual word? I think everybody understands that can be useful and that can be very important and helpful.
Is it possible the banner, the Gophers Final Four banner, is in some steamer trunk in a frat house in Dinkytown?
And they don't even know about it, maybe?
They might not even know about it. Or somebody knows about it, but they're not even there anymore. What you need here is for it to be in some exotic location that no one could have ever guessed.
Right.
On the other hand, it could be just as interesting as, if it's just in some stupid warehouse, hidden among a lot of things that aren't all that important, and just, we'll just stuff it there for now.
Because we get that a lot.
I don't think you can rule out, though, it's in somebody's house. That somebody gets a kick out of having it, but would they have difficulty not letting the cat out of the bag? That's the question. At some point,
you want to have it.
It'd be hard if you have it.
It's a conversation starter.
You want to be able to talk about it, so you'd think at some point, it would leak. No,
so I offered it up in one of my Final Four conversations to Sean Farnham, who's big time ESPN broadcaster guy. Sits with Tom Crean for hours upon hours. We talked about that. He's on the desk. He's on games. He was in San Antonio Davie. He was a freshman on the 97 UCLA team.
Oh.
So he played, obviously, against the Gophers.
Okay.
He didn't really play. He was on the team, but he didn't play much. And so we talked about the game. That's how I started the whole thing. And then I said, well, I offered him the banner because he feels like they should have it because we cheated.
Right.
He feels like he should have a Final Four ring and not an Elite Eight ring. And I said, if we could get you the banner, would you want that? He said 1,000%. He goes, I'd have all my former teammates. We'd all sign it. Toby Bailey, Charles O'Bannon. You know all the names. He said, I feel like we should get it if you're not going to do anything with it. And I don't know if I think that'd be a nice gesture.
Spencer Tollickson doesn't have it, does he? He'd have no reason to have it, would he?
Spencer, if he had it, we would know about it. Spencer, he could not keep the secret.
Yeah.
No, I love Spenny.
Yeah, you're probably right.
He could not keep the secret.
What if Miles Tarver has it? Whatever happened to mysterious Miles Tarver?
Didn't we do a look for him a while ago?
We did.
Somebody
several years ago. I don't think we did, but somebody did, and I don't remember what they found.
Feels like a Rand ball. Feels like a Rand ball endeavor.
That could very well be.
Yeah, I think, maybe he does.
Is he local?
I don't think so, because I feel like we would have heard about him.
Yeah, that's probably true. Unless, some guys.
Was he from California? Where was he from? I can't remember.
He wasn't. You're right. He wasn't. He definitely wasn't from here. I don't think.
Wasn't one of us?
No. All right. Let's make this a top of the hour pause. Let's get back to some Wiliiams Arena discussion. Largely inspired by an interesting text I got earlier and some conversations that Gaardsy had with several national media members who basically lectured him on the notion that that Wiliiams Arena's days are numbered and that basically the barn should be burned down and the Gophers should start over.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Stay tuned.
Fan.
It's iHeartRadio week only on Wheel of Fortune. And tonight, Wheel welcomes multi-platinum winning artist Keith Urban. And viewers at home, it's your chance to win a VIP trip to iHeartRadio's Let Freedom Sing July 4th celebration in Nashville. You can watch Wheel of Fortune tonight. Check your local listings.
So I'm all confused as we get to the 6 o'clock half hour of the program. We'll be with you till the bottom of the hour. Don't forget tonight on the Fan, NCAA men's college basketball big dance finale. University of Florida taking on the Houston Phi Slamma Jamalus Cougars. Wouldn't that be ironic? Speaking of irony, Cougs win the title with an extremely, as Rick Bozich told us, between 3:30 and 4, anonymous club.
It's true.
And the Phi Slamma Jamma kids could never quite make it. The famous, 54-52 loss to North Carolina State?
Right. They never won one, huh? Yeah, I guess they did.
They never won it.
That's crazy. Because 82 was Jordan, 83 Correct. Was NC State, 84 Georgetown.
Oh, and by the way, he never minds when I bring this up, because I was in Albuquerque for that game, and I was fairly convinced that I didn't think Houston was going to win in a rout, but I thought they would win the ball game. And the Bozich prediction column for the day of the game was NC State was going to pull the shocker. He called it.
That's a good one to have.
That's about as good a one to have as you, because I mean, there was almost nobody saying that was what was going to take place, right?
Did he ever get Jimmy V's seal of approval for
That's
that?
That's a good question.
Do you bring that up?
I don't remember.
If you ever get an audience with Jimmy?
I would. Or I would have.
I forgot you were in the pit for that game.
That was...
that's pretty cool.
And you could see it slipping away the obvious way. You know, NC State could play with pace. They were not in a hurry. They knew it frustrated Houston. And so the closer you got into the second half, or the further along in the game you got, with relatively tight score, you could see, they're not used to this. They're 5 slamma jamma. In fact, semifinal game, I think it was against Louisville, and it was like 180 to 170. I mean, It was up and down. Welcome to the 21st century. It was out of control. It was just the best of the best in terms of athleticism. And what did NC State do? They just muddied it up and kept muddying the thing up. And Houston didn't like playing that way. They did not like, and they got into, I think, as I recall, there was some foul trouble they got into, and they then Guy V got into a weird deal where he stopped trying to score for a while, which really didn't play well to Houston's strength. It was almost like, okay, well, we'll do the same thing you're doing, but that's not Houston.
Wasn't.
At the time, certainly was.
Did you see Hakeem had some trouble getting onto the court to celebrate with the current Cougars?
Is that security was tight?
Yeah, he didn't have a credential, and people are like, well, it's the dream, let him on. You know me, I've had my run-ins with security people, as you have as well.
More you than me lately.
For sure. So, but the guy is just doing his job. It's the Final Four. I know it's Hakeem, but if you let Hakeem in, where do you draw the line? Clyde the Glide? Who else do you have to let on there? Jim Nance gets to go wherever he wants.
Nance, he owns the place pretty much.
Yeah, he's doing all the ceremonies.
Do you have a credential on him?
He probably does. He's Jim Nance.
Yeah.
Did you hear the Barkley rip on that?
Yes, that was
so good. He's got time on his hands. He quit on your ass. Ernie was trying to say, and there's Jim Nance, make it all nice.
That was.
Where else would he be? He's got time on his hands. Masters doesn't start till Thursday, Ernie.
Miles Tarver is my wife's cousin. He lives in Oakland.
Where he's from.
Last I knew, he was coaching high school basketball and running basketball camps for young kids, which is kind of dovetails with what you were.
Yes, that's where I looked up during the break. Yeah, Triple Threat Online, the Bay Area's basketball training headquarters. He could teach rebounding for sure. This
texter also says his mom just passed away from cancer, which is sad news indeed. If that is the case, I have no reason to doubt him. But there's your Miles Tarver connection. All right, here's the text that came in that had me completely confused based on your stated position regarding Wiliiams Arena. All Justin could talk about at the Final Four is Wiliiams Arena and his pathological love for how it is now and to never touch it.
That doesn't sound like me.
That's the opposite of you, unless he's playing the bit. I don't know.
He might be.
What made it interesting was that's what you heard from other people without being asked, without being prompted. It was a a pathological love for Wiliiams Arena, and don't mess with it. That was the lesson you kept getting, whether you were asking for it or not, correct?
Yeah, I want to say at least 5 people, unprompted, brought it up. Some of them might have been prompting off of the previous conversations, but the majority opinion might have even been unanimous. I don't know if there was one person that I asked about it or that brought it up to me that said, make sure you leave it, or that said you need to tear it down. I think all of them said, they all agree you got to do some stuff with it. You got to make it a little bit nicer. You can't just leave it as is and say we're good because it's the barn.
Right.
Most interesting one, I think it's the Illinois State head coach who used to be a coach at Ohio State. He brought it up completely unrelated and said...
Just out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere and said, and by the way, Minnesota, he was talking about his job. He feels like it's a sleeping giant. And then he said, I also think Minnesota is the same way because I think you have a lot of stuff going for you. You've obviously got players. You've got the city. And he goes, in the arena, he goes, I was at Butler when we redid Hinkle. And because they were the same year, 1928. And he said, it makes a big difference. Now, has Butler continued to be Butler that they were 10 years ago? I don't know.
I don't think so.
But he did say there's got to be something you can do with it to make it nicer. And actually, coincidentally, a lot of people that made the trip for the Gopher Women WBIT semis and finals last week, who obviously spend a lot of time at Wiliiams Arena, also said the same thing about Hinkle, like how nice it is in there for a building that was built in 1928. And that could perhaps be the inspiration for whatever happens at Wiliiams. And honestly, we'll see where it goes, but the whole last couple of weeks with what Coyle said publicly about historic venue,
like the die is cast.
The fact that they're going to do some naming rights for it now, which I would imagine been in the works for a while. They're going to try to figure out how to pay these players the $20.5 million. That's the big money thing they got to figure out before they even think about whatever's next for the barn. Well, renovate, tear down, build new, whatever it is. So it's going to be a minute.
It's going to be a minute, and like I said, my only hesitation in going too far down the road that Wiliiams Arena has seen its time and its time has come and gone is I don't think that's the whole story. I do think if you get money going and you get some success going, it doesn't have to be the disaster that some people may think that it is. You know, that it's. I don't think it's the biggest impediment, but. Speaking, you know, what Bozich said earlier, I think is just fact now, is with the younger generation of people, it's you have to give them certain bells and whistles, and it's basic stuff that they're just more accustomed to and they need, and it is, in a sense, modernizing whatever arena that you have in there, whether, again, it's you know, the big you got to have the big TVs. You got to have concourse options. You have to have more food. All the things you could say, well, what does this have to do with basketball? Well, it's the old fan experience thing that's become...
It's my biggest thing.
Inescapably big in 2024. So is it Wiliiams Arena itself stopping the Gophers from winning? I don't buy that. I think if the product was better, it wouldn't be full every night, but I think it would be, the atmospherics would be a lot better, even if the building itself is antiquated. But nationally, I think the trap that people fall into is romanticizing from afar. They're not there day to day. They're not there to deal with how poor the amenities are there. And so it's easy to just think about, well, it's got the raised court and got a great history. That's kind of cool. And God, stop, don't mess with that. It's always easier to say that when you don't even set foot in the arena.
Right.
For 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? Because you're romanticizing it for what it once was. And so that's why I don't necessarily buy that argument as being all that meaningful at this point. Obviously, for whatever strategic reason, the Gophers and Coyle are going down a road that's not realistic. We don't even know if it's realistic to get it renovated anytime soon. But if we have any shot, that's the way we're going to go. And we're going to take this in steps. Now, I've always said, if the product gets better, does it actually become easier to sell the notion of, you know what, we're taking some steps.
Yeah.
But how about the next step? The next step is you want the basketball to be better. It is now. It's a little more consistent. Now, but let's be honest, this arena is just not made to help us take the next step. Then maybe it's easier to sell. I in terms of, you know, the expenditures that would go into a new arena. I don't know.
Well, and that's the last time they did the big renovations were early 90s, mid 90s when they put the chair backs in.
Is that how far back it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time.
The chair backs and the barn lofts, that's mid 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember, kids don't even know this. It used to be all benches in there.
Yeah.
And I remember hopping over where we had our season tickets. We had to hop over a bench to get to our corner seats right there across from the Gopher bench. And then they put the seats in and you're like, wow, this is crazy. This is cool. But that was in the 90s. But to your point, they were successful back then.
Yeah.
At that time period, Clem's got it rolling. They're coming off an Elite Eight. They're coming off a Sweet 16. This predates, you know, the stuff in 97. Mm-hmm. But there was a definite vibe around Gopher basketball in that time. I'm sure it was very easy to go, hey, by the way, we're going to upgrade the barn and make it better for you. And we've got some corporate seats coming. Yeah. The Wolves have just gotten to town, so I'm sure that was part of it, that we're losing, believe it or not, fans to that side of town now with their new exciting Target Center that had the neon lights in the entry. Remember that? In 1990, which is now the Lexus Club.
Yeah.
So that's probably what forced their hand to renovate back then, but they also had a good product. But that was 30 years ago. I was in elementary and middle school when that last big renovation happened, adding the club room, all of that stuff.
All right, let's come back.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past. came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Wrap things up, Stan.
Show wrap presented as always by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper-to-bumper show wrap.
Very nice guest lineup today that included a visit with Rick Bozich to preview the national championship game, men's tournament, basketball. A game you can hear tonight on the Fan. Florida, I think a slight favorite. Did I see that right?
About
like
a point and a half.
1.5 points. I think in Coach Barrero's pool, I think I've got Florida. I'm not even sure. I'm confused. I can't read the thing very well. I think I have, it's one of those, it's a blind drawing kind of a thing. I didn't pick them.
Yeah.
But I think I've got Florida tonight.
Rich, get
I don't
richer.
know what's at stake.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope it's something nice. Panacook and Hoos.
I would hope it would be. If maybe a Portillo's gift certificate.
Portillo's. Yeah, I went Gibson's. Portillo's is more your
that
style.
That might work. We'll see. That was between. Yep, that also would be very effective. Between 3:30 and 4, Ricky joined us. Also talked a little bit of baseball. We always have to give him a chance to complain about his White Sox team, and they are indeed the gift that keeps on giving. They're back in a familiar last place. I think after winning their first two, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they? In addition, we had a nice visit eventually. It got a little delayed, but we had Mike Conley on from Milwaukee, where the Wolves are preparing to take on the Bucks tomorrow night. That was really about from 4:20 to 4:40. And then Jonny Athletic joined between 5 and 5:30, admitting that he's been in some X controversies, more than he would like, that he gets into, particularly late at night.
I think he's feeling the stress of the Timberwolves season.
That could be. That could be part of it.
Because you mentioned it's playoff night for them every night, the Wolves right now. The beat writers are feeling the same pressure. They're being read. They're being followed.
Yeah, you're right.
On social media, I mean, not, in
not
Ramp A or Ramp B.
Well, that could be happening too.
It might happen too, but so they've got a lot of pressure on them too to know what the tiebreakers are, which is a complete mess. I think Jace Fredericks put out like 4 or 5 different here's what happens if treatises. And nobody's going to know until Sunday at like 6 o'clock Central when all the games have been played.
Yeah.
Where the Wolves are playing, who they're playing, when they're playing.
As high as 3, as low as 8, apparently.
What if it was 3 after all of this?
3-6. Could 6 be Denver?
It could be Denver. It could be Golden State. It could be the Clippers who can't stop losing. Kawhi's back.
That's true. Tomorrow, the plan is, it's Tuesday, so that means Louie will join regular time. And we're going to have an in-studio guest. I think I scheduled him for 3:30. John Bream, our old friend John Bream. He co-bylined a story in the Star Tribune last week. He wanted to come on last week, and obviously I was not available. But he and his compadre put together a list. They attempted to rate like the top 50. Was it 50?
I thought it was like 63.
Was it 63?
I thought it was like every
you might be right.
venue.
Maybe they just literally every music venue. What they liked about each one, what they didn't like about each one.
I like it.
Letter grades. It's a great idea.
It's a
very ambitious project. And he's always fun to have on because he just had a review. Bob Dylan was just in, was it Mankato?
That
just
sounds
the other
right.
day. And so we'll talk about all that with John Bream tomorrow. He's coming into studio, scheduled for a 3:30 start. And who knows what else might be on the docket before we wrap up our Tuesday show. I don't think we've talked to any Vikings today.
53 Essential Twin Cities music video.
Okay.
Yep.
Have I missed anything on the purple since I left? I don't think a lot by Viking standards, correct?
Not a ton, no. They had the owners meeting stuff last week. I don't think a ton came out of that. KOC talked about Harrison Smith deciding to come back for one last ride. I saw somebody today.
I don't think you can say it's one last ride.
Well, that's true. You're right.
It'll be the second to last ride because we thought it was the last ride last year.
I saw somebody say on NFL Network today that they believe the Vikings are as out as they have ever been on Aaron Rodgers. So that's the one that there's always some kind of flame off the, some embers from the logs.
So now we're rating the degree of out.
Yes.
It's come to that. I guess we shouldn't be surprised.
Draft a couple of weeks away.
Yeah. Well, maybe the more they thought about it, the more insane they thought it was. I don't know. How do you like this ESPN set right in front of the Alamo, the original Mission?
It's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Have you visited the Alamo in the San Antonio Davey trip?
Yes, I didn't go this time.
Yeah.
I went like 10 years or so ago. It's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah,
and they're putting like $500 million into it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I learned
this
last weekend. Yeah. They're putting about $500 million
That's considerable. Well, they are running out of topics because now they're down to Florida's record in clutch time games this season, Houston's record in clutch time games this season, which is a fine stat, but there's a million of them, right? So who's to say? But Florida, as you say, is a 1.5 point favorite over the Houston Cougars. And I'm sure you'll watch tonight, I'm assuming, at least some, or have it in the background. I'll watch.
Definitely.
I still don't think I think the ratings have been quite good, but I still don't think it feels as big. I don't know. It's just something.
I'm kind of with you.
Just something feels different about it right now. I don't even know how to articulate it, so I might be making it up as I go along, but it's just a feel.
No, I agree with you.
Don't.
Because I think it is, and I do think it's a lack of familiarity with the players.
I think that's a lot of it, yeah.
You just are kind of winging it and learning about them all at once.
Yeah.
Even if you're hardcore.
How many players we got for the Gopher men's team? Do we know yet?
I think we have 6 so far.
6 so far.
6 or 7, yeah.
Anybody staying that we want to stay?
Isaac Asima, the freshman from Cherry.
Okay.
A kid that they had redshirted this year that Nico also recruited while he was at Colorado State.
Well, he came on, didn't he?
Well, there's at least one guy from CSU that's coming with them.
Okay.
There's another guy that they recruited.
I mean, he was playing.
Isaac? Oh,
yes,
He's good.
Yes, he's good. He's got a chance, for sure. All right, well then tonight, Fan on Demand in the air, and then NCAA action, correct?
We go right to the NCAA action tonight.
Westwood 1 is coming up next. Enjoy. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Wendy's is the official hamburger of March Madness, which means more deals for you and more burgers for your face. It also means we got a junior bacon cheeseburger or a double stack for $1 with an in-app offer and a purchase. It's hard not to get excited when there's an offer of 2 of the freshest hot off the grill burgers that Wendy's makes. The junior bacon cheeseburger with the fresh beef, applewood, smoked bacon, cheese, crispy lettuce, tomato, and mayo. And the hot and juicy double stack with 2 patties of fresh, never frozen beef with cheese, ketchup, mustard, pickle, onion. The real champions of March Madness. Head to Wendy's app and grab a $1 junior bacon cheeseburger or a $1 double stack with an in-app offer and a purchase. For the freshest deal in fast food, gotta be Wendy's.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Wasabi Technologies is purpose-built to free businesses from skyrocketing storage costs and unpredictable egress fees from those old and top-heavy legacy providers. You know, the big guys. Wasabi is the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams around the world. From Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals, Wasabi is driving innovation in data storage, all for up to 80% less than those other guys. Try them out for free at wasabi.com.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.